Well, hello and welcome to Not the Jenny Show on Orange Hat Radio. This is Jenny Stevens, aka the Ukulele Girl, and this show is all about the wonderful musicians I've had the privilege of meeting over just about the last year while the world has been on pause. While we've all been staying safe at home, musical creativity has exploded, and there is a hotbed of activity going on in houses up and down the land, nationally and internationally. Over the next few weeks, I'll be introducing you to some of these artists and bands I've been getting to know lately, and they'll be telling us how 2020 changed the trajectory of their musical careers and what's next for them in 2021. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can tweet me at @the_ukulele girl, and don't forget to use the hashtag #NotTheJennyShow, or NTJS for short. This is a pre-record, so I won't be reading your tweets out live on the air this evening, but I can certainly give you a shout out in next week's show. And of course, I'll be responding on Twitter tonight because let's face it, I'm probably on there right now, aren't I? So tweet me at @the_ukulele girl, and don't forget to use that hashtag #NotTheJennyShow, or NTJS for short. So, on tonight's show, this guest heads up an international collective of instrumentalists and vocalists who, despite never having met, are creating music together from across the globe. From the USA to the Ukraine, from India to Iceland, they're collaborating to create some seriously epic tracks. Yes, tonight, Not the Jenny Show is excited to present the Blindfold experience.
A saddened face in a lonely place, 1,000 scars behind your eyes, so blue and bright. A tired smile, just for a while, so out of place. You cannot hide the tears you cry. Your heavy heart, so torn apart. Your darkest fears come out at night when you're alone. A flower child, you're a spirit wild and free at heart. Have you forgotten who you are? But you're far away from home. Say you're lost at sea on the deep dark ocean. Just remember this: one day you will fly. Passing glance, a stranger's touch, a chance to come alive again, just for a while. When the worlds collide, there's a rising tide, so hard to fight, as you give in your whole at last. But you're far away from home. A blackbird in the snow, and your wings are frozen. Just remember this: one day you will fly. lost in the darkness. Just remember this: one day you will fly away from me.
So, joining me now, all the way from Sweden, no less, please welcome Michael Lind of the Blindfold Experience. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Jenny. It's nice to be here.
Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to me today. It's great to actually get to talk to you in person because we've messaged back and forth about music a little bit, but this is the first time we're actually speaking.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So today we're going to delve into all things Blindfold Experience, and actually what better place to start than the name. But the Blindfold Experience isn't a band, is it? It's more of a collective. So tell us the story behind it and the name. What is the Blindfold Experience?
The Blindfold Experience is a project that I started. I've been writing music for quite some time. I've been playing in a band for many years, but I've been trying to get my bandmates to record their parts of the music I was making, but they never actually had the time. So eventually I got tired and I went looking on Fiverr for freelance musicians. And I tried a bunch of different musicians and singers out. Some I kept, some I did not keep. And since we collaborate in that way, most of these musicians I have never met. We haven't even talked on the phone. We only write messages back and forth. So it was quite, what's the word, analogy. We haven't seen each other, so we kind of blindfolded.
It's such a cool name. When I first came across you in about December, I think I first came across you, I was like, that is a proper cool name. I really liked it.
That's cool.
So you mentioned that you're in Sweden.
Yeah.
So all of these musicians that you managed to find through Fiverr, you were saying, where are they in the world? Is it an international collective?
Oh, yeah, certainly. The musicians are, some of them haven't been published yet, but to this date I have collaborated with people from Sweden, the UK, the US, Argentina, Australia, Ecuador, Cyprus, Germany, Iceland, India, Poland, and the Ukraine.
Wow. I mean, that is pretty incredible. And how many people would you say in total you've collaborated so far through the Blindfold Experience?
Well, somewhere between 10 to 15, I think, maybe more. Like I said, a few actually I never ended up using. It just wasn't right for the song.
Yeah.
Could be brilliant, but not what I was looking for. And so I've been really trying out and finding these musicians who they all have a different style, and I choose them. Now I know them, and I know how they play and what they're good at, what they're not so good at, and they're all good at everything, but some are just better at some points. So it's really a collection of very talented artists that I've been fortunate to work with.
So we opened the show today with Fly.
Yeah.
So that was your debut single, right? Tell us a little bit about how that track came about.
Yeah, that was a first one for me, actually, a new experience in songwriting. I've been writing songs for a long time, but it's mostly been instrumental, kind of spooky, filmatic things.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. So yeah, I have this thing. I always try to find some dark chords or harmonies or just that odd little note in a guitar riff that makes it sound a little spooky. So usually I start with some riff on the guitar or just a cool synth sound or effect that I like to, and then I build from there, and then I try to create something from that piece of inspiration. But for Fly, I decided to try something different. So it started as a very simple piano ballad, and then it grew. And I couldn't really decide. I didn't know what to do with it. It could be anything. So I actually did this version, and then I did another version which is more it's more piano, and there's Hammond organ and strings, a string arrangement, and a different singer. So it's quite a different song. So I kind of like that way to work, and it's new to me. So I'm working on new material now, and I think I'm going to do both ways, both approaches to songwriting, because I like having this. It's like a blank slate. You have the chords, you have the melody, and it could be anything depending on how you arrange it.
You mentioned there that you've been creating music for a long time, but that when you were younger it was more instrumental music.
Yeah.
What first got you into creating music as a youngster then?
I started playing the piano when I was about 8 to 9 years old. Mostly played classical music. And then I got my first keyboard, which was one of those really terrible Casio keyboards with bossa nova and Latin drums, rock, disco you could choose, and you could play the bass with one hand, just holding one key down.
Amazing. So, I think everybody had one of them, didn't they, when they were kids?
Yeah, they were fun. So you could do a few things with them. And then I always been into making mixtapes, making films, and adding sound effects. I gave up the piano when I was about 15 or something, and then a few years later I started to play the acoustic guitar, and I pretty soon started to play the electric guitar. And then I wanted to have something to play guitar too, so I bought my first real synth, the Korg M1 workstation. So I mostly bought that because I wanted to build songs that I could play guitar to. And I was still living at home, and I was playing very loud. I think my neighbors were crazy. And then, since I knew some guys who were playing in a band, and when they found out I had bought a synth, they wanted me to join them, and so I did. So I became the keyboard player in that one. I think that's the way it evolved. In the beginning, I got. You remember we had this conversation about the early cassette porter decks.
Yes.
Earlier. Yeah. So with a workstation, I could create drums and keyboards for that one, and then I could record double guitars.
We were talking about 4 tracks about a month or 2 ago, weren't we? Because I dug out my big old 4 track, which was I think it's either a Fostex or a Tascam, and you were like, "Oh, I've got one of them kicking around somewhere," so you dug yours out as well. Was yours a Yamaha?
Yeah, the first one I started with, I didn't have one of my own, so I borrowed from friends and I recorded on them, and there were 4 tracks. And then a few years later, I tried to expand it. I had started using Logic, and then I wanted to try to make something more advanced. So I actually hired an 8-track cassette recorder.
Wow!
So that was pretty cool. In one cassette, they could double the amount of tracks.
Yeah,
it was great, and it was I found it was a Yamaha MT8X, amazing machine. And then actually the reason I have that one that I sent you the picture of was because one of those songs, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I recorded that in '95. So I wanted to remake that song, and So I dug up the old tape, but I had rented the recorder, so I couldn't really use it. So I went out on the equivalent of eBay, I guess, or something, and found that tape recorder used for like £50 or something like that.
Gosh.
So I bought it just to transfer it to digital, so I could start over, and then I reworked the song, and actually we're going to listen to that one a little later because that's Paradise.
Oh, that's Paradise. Yeah, we are going to be playing that later on in the show.
Yeah.
So you said you had piano lessons when you were like a sort of a preteen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other formal education in music, or is that really where your love of music started?
Well, I think my love of music started much earlier, but playing the instrument, that was. We had this upright piano in my mother's and father's home, and I don't remember if I started playing it before taking lessons or if I was forced to take lessons. But I got kind of hooked, and I played a lot. And I learned to read notes. I'm a slow reader, but
same.
Yeah. So, but I just grinded it over and over, so I learned them by heart. And then I gave that up, like I said, when I was about 15, and when I started to play in the band, and we started to get, well, not serious, but just a little serious. I quit my job and I went to full-time study of music for a year. So I learned a lot in that year as well.
So for anybody who hasn't heard the Blindfold experience, I mean, I would find that hard to believe, but for anybody listening who hasn't heard you guys yet, how would you describe the music that you're typically creating now? Could you put a genre on it?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I think we're going to transgress because I have ideas. I want to try to make. I want to cross genres, and I want to mix. I want to do a collab with a rapper. Would be really cool.
Oh wow!
And I want to make collabs with female vocalists. If you know any good ones, hint, hint.
I might know one or two. Wink, wink.
So, but I would say for this first EP, it's pretty much rock and metal, and most of these songs tend to be a bit like it's a ballad disguised as a metal song, or a metal song disguised as a ballad. Because I've really been into these taking down tempo and using acoustic guitars for the verses, and then bring everything in for the chorus. But I'm also making acoustic versions of the songs, or some of the songs at least, and I think that will be a separate EP, the almost acoustic EP.
Wow, so lots of material to play with. Well, on that note, I think it's probably about time we played another song. Mm-hmm. So the one we're going to play next is actually my favourite of yours. I listen to it pretty much daily. We'll talk about it more after we hear it, but for now, this is the Blindfold Experience and Strangers Unkind.
from behind, blinded by light, fell from a height so great, so far from grace and pride. Barefoot we walk on broken glass, numb from the pain. There is no truth left to be told, nothing to say. Are still ringing in my ears, although the years have passed us by. Wounds may have healed, but still we're scarred for life. We are naked, we dance in acid rain, burning our skin. From this pain, searing our hearts. Another nightmare begins as I search for my voice. I just can't find it again.
So we just played my favourite Blindfold Experience song there, Strangers Unkind. I literally love that song so much I can't even tell you. The first time I heard it, it just blew me away. Tell me the backstory of that song.
I think I wrote it back in 95 or 97, somewhere.
Oh wow, gosh, that long ago.
Yeah, it was, and it was one of those instrumental tracks. It was just the metal riff and then a lot of stops and breaks. I was very much into thrash metal at the time. I listened to Megadeth a lot, and it was inspired by Megadeth in my darkest hour, and for that one I did not even record it with the vocals, but I just I was singing La Di Da Di and sent it over to Thomas, who does the lead vocals, and with the lyrics.
I didn't realise until recently. I mean, I've been listening to this song every day for like the past... It came out in January, didn't it? So for the past month and a half, I've been listening to this nearly every day.
I know, because I can see in this Spotify for artists, your playlist is...
It's just me. Like, it's just literally just me playing it every day. But I didn't realise until... we were talking about the song recently, you sent me some information about it, that there's 2 vocalists on there. I was convinced that it was the same guy.
Yeah.
So Thomas is doing the main vocal.
Yes.
And then you've got Jamie Jordan in the background doing all of the screamer stuff, right?
Yes. I used him for the harmonies for both Fly. Fly is featuring Paul B from the UK, and then I added the background harmonies from Jamie, because he's just amazing. And the same thing for Strangers Unkind. I used a singer called Thomas Baptista, and he's also an amazing singer. But even there, I wanted to bring Jamie in to add that special feeling that his background vocals provide. And I knew that Jamie also did some pretty cool screaming. I'm not a real fan of growl music, but if it's good, it's good. And Jamie has a special kind of growl that I really like. So I started playing with the idea that for the heavy part before the chorus, I always call it the nightmare part. So I wanted it to be darker and heavy, and I thought, well, could you try this, scream that part? And he did, and he blended it up with, when it changes from the screaming to the clear harmonies, it's just amazing, the impact.
I have got the biggest voice crush on him that the world has ever seen. Like, when I first heard that track, part of the reason that I loved it was because of those screamer vocals, because that's the one vocal style that I can't do, and it's the one vocal style I wish I could do. And when, like you said, when it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
When I hear someone doing it as well as he does it, they just have my absolute respect.
Yeah, it's incredible.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what does your home studio setup look like? I mean, you're churning out these amazing sounding tracks. What gear are you using to do that?
Well, I'm using my MacBook Pro laptop. I had it for ages, and it's getting old. I can't use a software instrument because it just dies.
Oh, no.
So, but it still manages to record audio, and then I can use software instruments, but I have to freeze them because the processor can't handle it. So I'm recording that one, and I have just a Focusrite interface, and I have a small studio at my summer house, and that's my favorite place to go to as soon as I can. I'm out there, and because of Corona, I have been there a lot since I've been working from home. So actually, one thing about Corona, if it wasn't for that, I probably would not have been able to do this. So out there, it's an island in the archipelago, and it's a bit rural. It's countryside. It's an island. It's close to the water, the forest. So I love being there, and I have this little room that I have stuffed in all the musical stuff I have. When I have the kids every other week, I'm in my apartment, and I don't do much music work here. I have a piano and a guitar here, or a few, but acoustic and electrics. But I don't really work well here. So my favorite places to be out there.
That sounds pretty idyllic to me. It sounds like a pretty nice place to write music and record music.
Yeah, it is. The amazing thing is I play loud, especially when I record the guitars, the electric guitars. And I've been walking over to my neighbors almost daily just to ask, did you hear anything last night? Because I have this tendency also to play late at night.
Yeah.
Because I'm slow at the day and I wake up in the evening, so I get more active. But they never hear me, and I think it's because my house is facing the forest.
Wow.
And the backside is to the neighbors, and they never hear me.
So when you're writing a track, at what point do you know which vocalist you want to use or which drummer you want to use? Does that happen quite early on, and are you sort of writing it in mind of those instrumentalists, or is that something that comes when the song is pretty much complete?
As soon as I know where I want to take it, if I want to make it a metal song, I know which guitarist I would prefer to use. Mm-hmm. And well, it's trial and error, but I'm getting the feeling for it. And at the moment, the last two songs, Fly and Strangers Unkind, I used this amazing drummer, David Lanus. He's just an amazing drummer, and the drumming he does on Fly is just really not using his talents, but he's also very good at keeping it down and just not doing more than what suits the song. So he's a perfect partner as well.
I always think that that's the measure of a great drummer.
Yeah.
When you know that they've got all this amazing technique and skill and they don't use it. Like that is a great drummer.
Yeah, absolutely. For most part, I think when the songs turn out to metal, I want to use David for drums, and I want to use. I've been getting a lot of compliments for the guitar players I found and the vocalists and drummers, but no one says anything about the amazing bass player. He is so good. He's Marcin Palider from Poland, and in my premixes, I always turn the bass up way too loud because he's so good.
Well, on that note, we're actually going to take another little break, and we're going to be playing Paradise next, which we've spoken about during the show. So this is the Blindfold Experience and Paradise.
Where do I start? And when will it end? Would you like what you found? If I showed you what's behind the walls that I've built? Say that it's time for me to put down my foot of love, but I can't find my feet, and I sure can't stand the heat or the fire in your eyes. Say what you have to say. Just get it all off your chest. Say it again and you're always left with despair. Won't you show me the way? Should I break this fairy tale or die here where I lay? Lost in this paradise where the demons away. I'll pay with the soul that I sell while I'm buying the stairway to hell. It's midnight in paradise. Softly demons do sleep. The roads and the path that I took made it clear now that I had become the king on a bag of throne. I've got nothing left to show. I'll sleep in the bed that I've made if I ever find my way back
Wow, I mean, that is a pretty good track. You gave me a preview of Paradise this week, and I love it already. I don't know if it can replace Strangers Unkind in my affections, but it's up there.
No, thank you.
But the version we've heard today is actually a radio edit, right? And on your forthcoming EP, there's going to be an extended version.
Yes. Paradise was the one track that I bought that old cassette porta for, because I wanted to go back and find the song again, the parts, and start re-recording them. And then I started to add the soft verses, which actually weren't there at all in the first part. And there came the verse, and after the verses, I totally rewrote the chorus, because the chorus at the beginning was the same as the intro, and it didn't really work. And also in the early version, since it was a shorter version with only instrumentals, there was a long solo section, and so the extended version is somewhere over 7 minutes long.
Wow.
And I decided, maybe we should make a radio edit. So in this version, the radio edit, the acoustic part is still there, but Ariel Delgado, who does the acoustics on this, he also does the lead guitars and the fills, and he did this amazing guitar harmonies for that part. But in the other version, I never intended for those harmonies. He just brought them himself, which was really cool. But in the other version, when the break comes, it actually goes over to a metal riff, and then it kicks off with a keyboard solo followed by a dual guitar solo and double bass kicks, and it's just crazy all over the place. And when it lands into the acoustic parts, there is an amazing bass solo there by Marcin Politer as well. So finally he gets to be heard, I think.
So Paradise is actually going to be the next single, right? So that's going to be coming out in, the next 4 weeks or so?
Yeah, it's ready, and I just have to put it out to DistroKid so I can submit it to the Spotify.
And then the EP will be coming out after that, right?
Yeah, it's about maybe 4 weeks after or something.
4 weeks after that, right?
4 to 6 weeks. And it will feature Mother of Ghost as well. And there will be an acoustic version of Fly with Thomas Baptista on the vocals. Mainly because I think I want to show that the Blindfold experience can be more than metal, something completely different.
Yeah. And
also that one will be like 3 minutes 45, and I'm trying to, the new material I'm working on, I'm trying to not write songs that are 12 minutes long and just make something more radio friendly as well.
I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to that EP coming out for sure, so I can hear the extended version of Paradise. I mean,
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So we've chatted quite a bit about a lot of different things, but I'd like you to tell me something about you that we don't already know, and it could be music or anything.
I can tell you 2 things. I broke my knee about a year ago. I tried one of those electric kick bikes, and I fell, and I shattered my knee.
No.
So yeah, it was very clumsy, and so I was home from work in I think 6 weeks or something before I started to go back, and then I bought a new acoustic guitar and started playing that one. I think that also was pretty much one of the starting points for writing Fly.
Really?
Because I had all this time and I could just sit around, and I couldn't really move very much. So it took me, like, the first time I was going back to the hospital to have a checkup, it took me probably 15 minutes to put on a pair of socks.
Oh my gosh.
Because I couldn't reach my feet.
Oh my gosh.
So, well, something good came from that as well, I think. Musically, well, I can tell you about this one incident when I've been playing in a cover band for many years, and we were playing this small pub. It was crowded, crazy crowd, and it was really fun. And while we were playing, a young woman fell in the bathroom and hit her head, and it was yeah, it was kind of bad. So there was ambulance people there to pick her up, but she was okay. She wasn't seriously harmed, but they actually carried her out on a stretcher while we were playing the final countdown, which was kind of strange.
That's savage. Did you play that on purpose?
No. It's just we always ended with that one.
So one of the things that my guests have been saying to me recently is that 2020 was a bit of a curveball for them and whatever they were doing musically. How did it shape things for you?
For me, it was I think the other way around because of Corona, I was allowed to work from home. So that was 2 hours of commuting that I saved each day.
Wow.
And I could actually I could work from my summer house, where I have my equipment and where I have my place of solitude or mayhem or whatever. And because of that, I actually finished these songs. And from the beginning, the intention was only to make some music and have my bandmates play for me, and then just torturing my nearest friends. But then when I started to, since they didn't have the time, I started using these other guys, and the music grew, and all of a sudden I thought that, well, it's not that bad. Maybe I should give it up, publish it on Spotify. It never was my intention, but I started playing with the idea, and then all of a sudden the first song was out, and it got well received, and so now I'm kind of hooked to it. So it's been cool in that way.
So 2020 was quite a positive thing then for you musically.
Yeah, musically. Otherwise, of course, it's been a terrible year, but just musically, it's been good for me. Yeah.
It's interesting how, I mean, people keep saying that time and again. And I mean, that was my own experience. You know, it wasn't a great year, but musically, it's been quite a positive thing, and it's shaped things quite nicely. Yeah. How did you first discover the indie music community? Because that's how I met you on Twitter. How did you first discover that community?
Yeah, it actually was Paul B from the lead vocalist on Fly. He recommended me that I should go out on Twitter. He recommended a radio station that I could contact, and I didn't even know that you could do that. Wow. I didn't know that you could get your music on radio. And so I always thought Twitter seemed so boring, but I found that it's quite fascinating, and it's a great platform to meet people and network and build a community. So without Twitter, I think I would perhaps have 200 streams, and 180 of them would be me, probably. So, yeah.
It's a great place to meet other musicians, isn't it? If anybody's listening and they would like to come and find you on Twitter or any of the other social platforms, do you want to shout out your Twitter handle and your Instagram so that people can come find you?
Absolutely. It's on Instagram and Facebook, and also on the web. It's the Blindfold Experience .com on the web, and just the Blindfold Experience on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter has not enough letters, so it's the Blindfold X1, the number 1, the Blindfold X1.
So people can come and find you on those handles. So anybody listening who wants to chat to Mike about music or stream and download any of his tracks, you can also find him on Spotify, iTunes, all the usual music stores.
I try to be supportive of others, and I follow back everyone that I can. And unless you're a half-naked radio personality who promises me 1 million streams, then perhaps I won't follow you back. But otherwise,
I never promised you 1 million streams.
No, I didn't even know you were a radio personality when I started talking to you.
So tell us, what's next for you in 2021? Obviously, we don't quite know how this year is going to pan out for us, but what's your ideal scenario for 2021?
My biggest ambition musically for 2021 will be to write new material, and work with the singers and the musicians that I worked with so far on the Blindfold experience, and I would like to do some collabs. Definitely, I want to work. I want to try working with a rapper, and I would like to try working with a female singer or a couple. Maybe try making a duet as well.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. That could be cool.
Do you still have any big ambitions as far as music goes? Something that you know you really want to do in your career?
I haven't really thought of myself as having a career in music, but I think just actually publishing something like I did last November when I released Fly, that was a big accomplishment, and then coming to the conclusion that I will release more material and make EPs as well. I think that is just pretty much what I'm about to imagine at the moment. I mean, the Blindfold experience is very unlikely to perform live. It would be an expensive gig if we're going to use the actual performing artists.
Imagine that. Imagine if you got them all together internationally.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah,
that would be an expensive tour. That would.
Yeah, and we might not even like each other in person.
Imagine if you all met up and you're like, well, I can't stand him.
I think I would like them. They are great people, all of them, and I'm very fortunate to have been able to work with them.
They're amazing musicians. I mean, the tracks you've been putting out so far are super impressive, and I can't wait to hear what comes next.
Oh, thank you.
So we played Paradise, the last track, and we've said that the extended version of that is going to be on your EP. The track we haven't spoken about is the one we're actually going to close out the show with, which is Mother of Ghosts. Yeah. That's also going to be on the EP. Now, this is a little bit of a different track because this is kind of going back to your old school way of doing things in that it's an instrumental track, right?
Yeah. It's going to sound crazy because this one also, I wrote this one, I think in 91.
Oh, wow.
When I just had bought my M1 keyboard, and then when I tried to re-record it later, I spent so much time looking for the keyboard sound that I had. I couldn't find it, or I couldn't reproduce it really, but eventually I managed to accomplish something that was similar to the original one, and this one actually is it's based on a keyboard figure, and then it is built up of small parts, basically based around the minor fifth chord, which I love. It's the evil chord, and I just arranged it in different ways. So it's an instrumental, and it's metal riff mayhem.
Well, we won't keep people in suspense any longer. We will close out the show with that song now. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me today. I've really enjoyed getting to know you a bit better. I'm sure everybody else has too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it as well.
Absolute pleasure. So, to close out the show then, this is the Blindfold Experience and Mother of Ghosts. Thanks, Mike. I will see you on the socials.
Thank you.
So there goes Mike. What an interesting chat that was. Why don't you head on over to Twitter, see him, say hello, give him a follow so you can keep up to date with what he's doing musically. You'll find him at the Blindfold X1. And as we said, you can stream and download all his music on all the music platforms like Spotify, iTunes, and all of those usual stores. And that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Not the Jenny Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And I do hope you'll join me next week when my guest will be Dr. Fubs of Fubs and Chubs. Now, next week's episode will be the last in this series of Not the Jenny Show, so make sure you tune in for that. And thank you so much for supporting the show this series. I've had an absolute blast. So if you want to feedback to me about today's show or any of the shows, you can find me on Twitter at @the_Ukulele Girl. And don't forget to use that hashtag Not the Jenny Show or NTJS for short. So it's goodbye from me, Jenny Stevens, aka the Ukulele Girl, and goodbye from Orange Hat Radio. I'll see you on the socials.
Not the Jenny